Big thanks to Into the AM for helping support my channel. Get 10% off any order from Into the AM when you use coupon code RISTER at checkout. This weekend, 2 majors will be taking place across opposite sides of the world. Game is Game over in Paris, France, and the Luminosity Smash Invitational in Florida, USA. This is the first time in a while that we've got 2 majors happening at the exact same time, so this is the perfect opportunity to go over both of them at once. Today we'll be taking a look at the top 8 seeding for both Game is Game and the Luminosity Smash Invitational, seeing how likely they are to do well, and which of the top 8 seeds could realistically make big runs to win the event. We'll get started by taking a look at the bigger tournament of the 2, Game is Game. The most notable thing about both of these majors this weekend is that only one horseman will be in attendance between the 2 of them, that being Sonics at the Luminosity Invitational. Spargo, Mia, and Akola are not going to either major this weekend, so it leaves the door open for the other talents in the top 10 to pick up their first major victory of the year. By the way, all seeding graphics I'm using are courtesy of Whist. Link to their Twitter, and therefore these graphics, is in the description down below. Alright, now let's finally get started. At Game is Game, the first seed is Shuton and the second seed is Gluttony. And since there aren't any of the previous major winners of 2024 in attendance, no matter what happens at Game is Game, someone is winning their first major of 2024. But let's start with the obvious. Gluttony has massive potential to underperform, given the fact that Gluto's been trying to learn a new controller. It's part of the reason why he underperformed at Battle of BC6 and KR Banger 4. These hand pains have forced Gluttony to pick up a new controller, and he's simply not at the same level as before. Yet. There is always a chance that this tournament is the one where Gluto returns to form, and with the home state advantage of the French dimension, I'd say there's a pretty good chance of that. Although, I will say, there's a good chance that Shuton will be using a lot of Olimar throughout this bracket, which could pose a problem for Gluttony, as Olimar is one of Wario's absolute worst matchups in the game. Speaking of weird matchups, the third seed of Game is Game is Yara. And here's the thing, Olimar is Samus's worst matchup, but every time Shuton and Yara fight, it gets closer and closer, their last few sets going Game 5. Yara is on the verge of a breakthrough. But then there's the question of Yara and Gluto. We all know that Gluttony is extremely experienced in the Samus matchup thanks to Siski, but could you imagine if Gluto loses to Yara? There's no doubt people will be looking at Yara versus Gluto in order to compare it with his sets against Siski, in order to maybe get a definitive answer to who the best Samus in the world really is. The 4th seed is Mudace, who is coming off of a 3rd place finish at Invasion 2024. I'd say this seeding is pretty good for Mute. Granted, Mudace did narrowly defeat Shuton the last time they fought at Cirque du CFL 3, and the 2 of them are seeded to fight in winner's semis, so I wouldn't entirely disregard the possibility that Mute makes a big upset there. Other than that though, I'm not sure Mudace could defeat Gluttony unless his hand pains are still a factor, and given the fact that Mute just lost to Siski at Invasion, I'm not sure Mudace would defeat Yara either. To me, the 4th seed seems to be a good place for Mudace. The 5th and 6th seeds of Game is Game are Gact, the 5th seed, and Raflo, the 6th. Gact is an extremely big wild card, able to either underperform or outperform any seeding. Although, we did see Gact have a good performance lately at KawaiiCon 2024, so perhaps Gact will end up outperforming this seed. Raflo, on the other hand, is a player that I believe can absolutely go much deeper in bracket, especially if Gluttony isn't at the top of his game. Raflo has undergone an insane level up lately, and I wouldn't be surprised if he makes top 3 easy. And the last 2 top 8 seeds of Game is Game are Jogibu, the 7th seed, and Siski, the 8th. Now, Jogibu is another wild card, kind of like Gact. The last time Jogibu came over to Europe during Terra, he got upset early on, and there's a decent chance that happens again, given that Jogibu has to defeat MK Big Boss and Crepe Soleil to make top 8, and those are 2 heavy hitters. Siski, on the other hand, seems to be in a good place seeding-wise. I don't think Siski makes top 8 through winners, since he has to battle Shuton, and Siski will have to face Lugi to make top 8 through losers. And while their set count has gone back and forth lately, Siski is playing hot so far this year, and it is still a really good matchup, so don't count Siski out just yet. Normally, I'd have a whole segment about players I think will make big upsets, but in the interest of time, I can't go over too many of them in depth. Instead, I'll just give some shoutouts to the 9th through 12th seeds. Those players being Flo, MK Big Boss, Lugi, and Crepe Soleil. With one upset or 2, these players could easily make top 8, and I think they're all skilled enough to do so. If you want my personal recommendations though, look out for the 14th seed Rarkyor, as well as 19th seed Maze Beans, and last but not least, 21st seed Ryukai, all of whom can make massive upsets. And that's it for Game is Game. My main takeaways headed into this major is that Gluttony is likely to underperform, and I believe we're going to see an all-Japanese grand finals. Probably Shuton versus Yara, but Gact could also make a big run. I also think that Raflo and Siski will do really well, just not well enough to make grands. But now it's time for us to take a look at the other major tournament going down this weekend, the Luminosity Smash Invitational. As a 10-player invitational, there are 2 round-robin pools of 5 players each, and everyone but 2 players will make top 8, 4 entering from winners and 4 from losers. So we're actually just going to go over the pools themselves instead of the top 8 seeding, since it makes everything simpler and allows us to go over every entrant. Pool 1 consists of Sonics, Shattuck, Meister, Riddles, and Mars. And if there's one thing you noticed from this, it's what everyone else immediately noticed. Riddles is in for one hard pool. Every single one of these matchups is considered to be slight, if not hard, losing for Kazuya. And to make matters worse, Riddles is negative in set count to every player here other than Mars, who he's never fought. Although these head-to-heads are only from 2023 onwards. It is worth noting that while he is down 1 and 2 in every head-to-head, Riddles has defeated them all at least once. So Riddles could play phenomenally and make it out of pools. But if he's not playing at 110%, Riddles isn't making it out. The top seeds of this pool are Sonics and Shattuck, the 1st and 4th seeds respectively, and I think they'll have no problems making it out of pools. Shattuck did go Game 5 with Meister the last time they fought, but I still think Shattuck can likely pull out the victory against everyone except Sonics. Meister, on the other hand, is in a bit of a rougher spot. I don't think Meister will beat Sonics or Shattuck, although maybe he could manage against Shattuck. But assuming that he doesn't, I don't think Meister beats Mars either, given how skewed that matchup is in ZSS's favor. So Meister has to clutch up against Riddles, or face being upset and not making it out of pools. It's a tight line, but Meister should, keyword should, be able to make it. We've already talked about Riddles, so the last thing to mention is the bottom seed of this pool, Mars. Mars is likely the biggest wild card of this entire tournament. With no recent head-to-heads and no 2024 results to speak of, Mars is either going to drown like he's predicted to, or he's gonna make like top 3. I don't think Mars beats Sonics, but I think Mars has a good chance to beat literally everyone else, meaning that he'd enter top 8 from winner's side, and from there, it's off to the races. Pool B consists of Tweak, Light, MKLeo, DeBuzz, and Hungrybox. Yeah, Hungrybox was invited. That's a whole other can of worms that I'm not even gonna touch right now. On the bright side though, it does mean that the question of who's not making it out of this pool is fairly easy to predict. I will say though, it would be hilarious if Hungrybox made it out of pools, and every single game taken from HBox will be really funny to me. So I think Tweak will probably sweep this pool, given the dominant head-to-heads against everyone here. His biggest threats are Light, who plays a favorable matchup in Diddy, and interestingly enough, DeBuzz, but not for Rosalina. If DeBuzz goes Steve, then there's a good chance that Tweak will just lose by default. I mean, let's be real for a second. Tweak has such a Steve problem, it's starting to get embarrassing. You all remember what happened at Collision, don't you? Being double eliminated by Onin and DD back-to-back for 17th as the 1st seed? Yeah. So maybe we'll see the Sephiroth or something. DeBuzz is an interesting case, because I believe he could squeeze out a win against both Tweak and Light with Steve, but not with Rosa. If he goes Rosalina, I believe the bracket will go exactly as it's seeded to, especially off the back of some lower placements. Which means that the last 2 players of Pool B are Light and MKLeo. These 2 are an interesting case, because I believe their brackets will go mostly as seeded except for when they fight each other. It's important because that will determine who gets out from winners and who gets out from losers. And even though Leo is seeded to lose, Leo's set count is actually positive on Light from 2023 to now. So with just one clutch upset, Leo will make top 8 from winners instead of losers. That set between Leo and Light may be the most influential of this entire pool when it comes to who places where. And those were the 2 pools. There's a ton of potential for upsets to happen, the main one being Light versus Leo and Mars in general. But for the sake of argument, let's assume pools happens exactly as it's seeded to, and take a look at what the projected top 8 looks like. Winner's side top 8 will see Sonics, Light, Shattuck, and Tweak duke it out. Sonics is projected to beat Light, and Tweak is seeded to fight Shattuck. Assuming this is how it pans out, I do think Tweak will beat Shattuck, as Tweak is Shattuck's bracket demon at the moment. There's a good chance that Light will beat Sonics given the matchup, but Sonics has really leveled up since their last set. But Light's no slouch either. Remember the Lit Invitational 2, where Light beat Mia's Steve and Game & Watch? So needless to say, I think this set could go either way. But interestingly enough, if Sonics wins this set, I think he beats Tweak. But if Light wins this set, I think he loses to Tweak. So in a way, this winner's semi set is actually really important for who makes winner's side grands. And while I do think it will happen as seeded, I wouldn't be surprised if Light wins here and Tweak ends up making grands through winners. Losers bracket sees Dabuz, Meister, MK Leo, and Riddles make top 8 through losers. And even though Leo's Roy lost to Riddles at Diamond Dust, I think a full set with Joker will probably end up in an MK Leo victory. And that's if Riddles even makes top 8, remember? I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that, if Mars takes Riddles' spot, we'll have MK Leo versus Mars for the first time in a long time. And that is just peak Smash waiting to happen. And despite what's seeded to happen, if Meister versus Dabuz does indeed go down, I think Dabuz wins that 10 times out of 10 because of the insanely dominant matchup. Losers quarters sees Light versus Leo and Meister versus Shattuck. Now, everything I said about Light versus Leo in pools also applies here, and I did just say that Dabuz will beat Meister. However, I don't think it matters at this point. No matter if Meister wins or if Dabuz makes the incredibly likely upset, I don't think either of them could beat Shattuck, meaning that losers semis will likely be Shattuck versus Light or Leo. If MK Leo makes it here, I think Shattuck wins it fairly easily. The MK Rob might have a chance, or maybe even the Roy, but I just don't think it'll happen. If Light makes it into loser semis, as he's seeded to, it gets more complicated. Light's head-to-head is really good versus Shattuck, but at their last encounter, Shattuck won the set. So this is a set that could really go either way. But again, I'm not sure that it matters. Because in winners finals, Sonics is seeded to beat Tweak, sending Tweak down to fight the winner of this set. And no matter who wins loser semis, I don't think they beat Tweak. So again, I'm not sure how much this conversation really matters. Which leaves us with grands of Tweak versus Sonics. And as boring as this may be to say, I think Sonics wins this tournament through winner's side fairly dominantly. Without the tri-state level up that Tweak got at LMBM, I just think Sonics is too built different as one of the 4 horsemen for anything else to happen. Again, that answer might disappoint you, but I think that top 8 through top 3 will probably be the best part of this tournament, not the top 3 itself. My broad predictions for the Luminosity Smash Invitational is that grands will be Sonics versus Tweak, which Sonics will win. Mars is incredibly likely to go on a massive run, and I believe MK Leo will make top 4. But there's another possibility, the possibility being that none of this happens at all. We all know the classic saying of Smash, the first thing to fall apart at tournaments is the seeding. There will be massive upsets, massive runs, and big wins. And no matter what, I'll be here to cover it all when I go over both Game is Game and the Luminosity Smash Invitational next week. That's going to be it for today's video. Before I go, shout out to my patrons Seth Laster, Falsco333, Logan S, Persipalm, Wallet, Mr. Sister, Happy Feet, Oshiman, Mistybot, and my 2 patrons Iltis, Diamond Blaze, and Ben L. Additionally, shout out my YouTube members DTO Jr., Defective, Boston R, SSBU, Kirby Fan, Nexus, Soko, Arbiter Skyward, and my 2 members Mike G, Wu-Tang Forever, and Stormtrooper. Lastly, extra special thanks to my tier 3 supporters Fat Blizzard, who says dogs are better than cats, Avidoon, who says Mr. Rice is the go to Smash content, and Iltis, who says go watch the Rivals 2 videos. If you want to support me using any of these methods, links are in the description down below. Don't forget to use my coupon code RISTER in order to get 10% off on any order from Into the AM. And lastly, I want to give one last sincere thanks to Let Me Fly for the continued support of my channel. Link to their Twitter page is in the description down below. Don't miss the streams and shorts I'm producing over the weekend, but until then, I've been Mr. Mice, and thank you all so very much for watching.